Hey, Ghoulash here. Like Stained would often say, it's been a while. As you may know, I was banished to the Dimension back in February. It's not as bad as it sounds, though.
It turns out that the Dimension is actually a 5-star spa and resort run by the world-famous physical therapist Diana Mention.
The resort had it all.
A tennis court, a winery, a natatorium, high-quality vegan food, and there was even a live Philip Glass concert. Just absolute class.
I believe that the reason why I was sent to Dimension was because Dr. Wolfula noticed that they had a torture program, but it was optional, so I just did some bird watching that morning. Don't tell Dr. Wolfula about any of this, though. What he doesn't know won't hurt him, but it'll certainly hurt me. Well, since I'm back, I gotta review a movie. Of course.
Well, this time I was assigned the 7th Halloween film, Halloween H20, 20 years later. Or maybe it's called Halloween H20. Wait a second, assuming that H20 stands for Halloween 20, then that means that the full title of the movie is Halloween 20, 20 years later.
If that's the actual full title of the movie, then it's a pretty great title. For simplicity's sake, though, I'm just gonna call it Halloween H20. You're probably wondering why I'm reviewing this particular movie instead of Dr. Wolfula. Well, I asked him that, and he replied, and I quote, "What's the point of reviewing anything if it doesn't have Scooby-Doo in it?" I don't know what that means. Oh, Scooby-Doo, you're such an incompetent detective.
Released in 1998, Halloween H20 begins about 20 years after Halloween's 1 and 2, hence the title.
We all know the story so far, but here's a little recap anyway.
At the age of 6, little Mikey Myers stabbed his older sister on the Halloween of 1963, and 15 years later, he returned to his hometown of Haddonfield to stab another sister he apparently had named Laurie Strode. Their encounter in 78 results in Mike burning alive in a hospital, and Laurie, well, she got a pretty good scare.
So 20 years fly by. A lot of things happen in that time, but not really.
Michael Myers may have survived the fire, as stated in Halloween 4, but other than that, all of the adventures that Michael had between Halloween 2 and H20 are completely non-canon now. For fans of the Thorne trilogy, it really sucks that they never got to find out what happens next for Tommy Doyle and his crew, but for fans of a storyline that makes sense, Halloween H20 ignoring those 3 movies was a necessary evil.
The split timeline does confuse newcomers to the franchise, though. Dr. Wolfula gets a lot of comments asking for an explanation for it. Yeah, stop asking me, goddammit.
The birth of this new Halloween continuity all came down to a certain no-show for 4, 5, and 6 wanting to return to the series that started her career, Jamie Lee Curtis.
It's kinda like what happened with Star Wars Episode 7, but younger and with a lot less money involved.
On October 29th, 1998, Michael Myers pays his respects to his deceased arch-nemesis Dr. Samuel Loomis by arbitrarily raiding the doc's home office in Langdon, Illinois. During his little investigative break-in, Michael discovers a file that contains sensitive information about his little sis, Laurie. Laurie had actually faked her death at some point and went into hiding under the assumed name of Carrie Tate.
It's gotta suck being Laurie. She's had to go by 3 different names in her life. Must be really hard to keep track.
Michael proceeds to go on a fun cross-country road trip in pursuit of his sister before Halloween passes.
It's sort of like planes, trains, and automobiles. Except with murder.
So, what has Laurie been up to? Well, despite the crippling fear and emotional turmoil she's been afflicted with, Laurie turned out pretty okay. Miss Strode, Miss Tate, is the headmistress of Hillcrest Academy, a prestigious private boarding school for young, rich, white kids in California, and she has a son named John, played by Josh Hartnett. That resents her for a variety of things, I assume, but the current thing is her position on Halloween. Laurie hates Halloween, the whole Halloween season. Now, please don't ask why, no one quite knows the reason. It could be her head wasn't screwed on just right.
It could be, perhaps, that her shoes were too tight. No, wait, I just remembered why. Laurie's friends were killed on Halloween. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense than my theories. I mean, why would shoes make you hate Halloween? There's something wrong with me.
That's enough. I can't take it, Mom. He's dead. Michael Myers is dead.
What do you want me to say?
That it's over? We should try to get on with some attempt at a happy existence, Mom.
So yeah, Laurie has become a pill-popping, depressed alcoholic following her encounter with Michael, and she's afraid that her relationship with her son is in jeopardy.
She's a failure, but a successful failure.
With Halloween approaching, and with it the 20th anniversary of her life being ruined, Laurie's misery's at an all-time high. You can tell because she's constantly seeing Michael in reflective surfaces that he's not actually in front of.
I don't know why. I guess it's artistic or something. Like white horses.
Well, unbeknownst to Laurie, but knownst to us, Michael's on his way, but it's gonna take a while getting to Cali from Illinois, so the writers gotta fill the gap with something.
What exactly?
Well, some mild familial drama, I suppose. Most of the students are headed off for a camping trip to Yosemite. John, Laurie's 17-year-old son, happens to have a girlfriend named Molly who will be attending this trip. Hormones dictate that John wants in on this trip as well, but Laurie forbids it, mostly because she doesn't want John out of her sight in case Michael does return, but maybe also because having a bunch of horny teens camping out in the woods with a killer on the loose is a bit passé. So John has to stay put, but that's just fine because it turns out that Molly, played by Michelle Williams, can't go on the trip after all. John and Molly will be staying behind in a mostly empty school, and they won't be alone either, because their mutual friends, Charlie and Sarah, are also staying behind just so they can have sex. It all works out for everyone in the end, including for Michael, because now he'll be pleasantly surprised to have a few 17-year-olds to kill as an added bonus for old time's sake.
That's the basic gist of Halloween H20's story.
Laurie is sad, her son is sort of angsty, and then Michael eventually shows up and does his thing.
It's a serviceable plot for a horror movie, but the problem with it is that not a whole lot happens until Michael shows up.
The only stuff that really matters during this stretch are the scenes where Laurie is trying to come to terms with her family history.
There's a lot of filler besides.
For example, there's a very tense scene involving Michael's encounter with a mother and her small daughter in a rest stop bathroom on his way to the academy. Honestly, it's a pretty suspenseful scene, but it doesn't really matter all that much to the story.
The movie's only like 80 minutes long, so the producers probably decided to tack that scene on just to pad out the runtime.
There's some romance thrown in between Laurie and her guidance counselor beau named Will, played by Adam Arkin, but there's not much substance or payoff to this relationship. Will seems like he doesn't actually care about Laurie and just wants to make it with the actress from True Lies.
My brother killed my sister when she was 17.
Well, that's sucky.
Will's only purposes as a character are giving Laurie somebody to talk to about her problems, and saying some occasional deadpan snark.
What are you two up to tonight?
Well, we thought we'd hit the town, pick up some guys, drop some roofies in their drinks, have a whole date rape evening.
Ah, sounds good.
Care to join us?
I can't. I'm having my nipples pierced.
Oh.
But you two have a good time.
That's the weird thing about Halloween H20. It spends a lot of time dealing with relationships, but they don't really go anywhere. They're just a distraction until Michael finally shows up.
Let me demonstrate. John and Molly are boyfriend and girlfriend. They're teens and they like each other. We get some scenes establishing this.
And you are a sterling example of what's right. And tonight you get my full concentration.
I'm honored.
All John really seems to want is to be with Molly wherever she is. That's all there apparently is to this relationship. When John gets what he wants, he's pretty much done as a character and is swept aside from the story as soon as possible. John's tumultuous relationship with his mother doesn't reach a dramatic conclusion, even though it was the driving conflict for much of the movie. There were implications that these two characters have pre-existing issues, but the only apparent problem is that John wasn't allowed to go to Yosemite, but eventually he's allowed to because Laurie just changed her mind.
Go back quick.
Mom, I don't have to go.
Go, just go. Have fun.
You sure?
Yes. Look, it's good for you. It's good for me.
That's it for this mother-son relationship.
Ultimately, the only thing that matters in this movie is Laurie and Michael's relationship. A relationship involving somebody that doesn't talk and isn't present for most of the movie.
Laurie hates what Michael did to her all of those years ago. You know, messing up her happy life in ignorance of her past, but what she really hates, deep down, is that she never got closure. There was always that ambiguity about whether or not Michael actually did burn alive. What if he's still out there? I mean, you can't kill the boogeyman.
How would you feel if you knew that there could be a guy out there that was unstoppable and wanted to kill you and your whole family? It's not fun.
Halloween H2O provides Laurie with a chance for closure, a chance to finally face Michael instead of running from him hoping a man in a trench coat will rescue her. That's what the story is really about, and it's great. It finally provides the opportunity to explore the brother and sister aspect introduced in 2 that was never properly addressed because it was just something John Carpenter came up with in a moment of writer's block.
I mean, Empire Strikes Back had just come out.
This unspoken relationship is the heart of the movie's story, but everything surrounding Laurie and Michael's eventual reunion feels half-baked.
Just call me. Call and call. If you feel like you've called too many times, call once more.
Strangely enough, one very minor character did have a story that reached a conclusion.
Hillcrest Academy has one security guard named Ronnie, played by LL Cool J. Ronnie seemingly has a very long shift because he's here all day in his little office, mostly just talking to his wife on the phone. Ronnie is very rarely seen without a phone in his hand, chatting it up with his sassy missus, who sounds like a cartoon character.
I want a baby before I get so old I can't get my butt back.
You gotta give me a chance, honey. I have to express myself creatively. We're paying the bills, aren't we?
Ronnie's dream is to one day become a successful author of erotic fiction.
I want to invade every part of your being. I want to tantalize myself with your sweet nectar.
Oh, Tanya, better not fall for that shit. I smell that a mile away.
And Tanya laughed at him. You don't expect me to fall for that shit, she said.
That's right.
Ronnie might be very good at that. I don't know. But I do know that he's not very good at being a security guard. The job entails 2 things.
Keeping students in and keeping weirdos out. Ronnie fails at both of these jobs on the one day when he really needed to do them well, but whatever. Ronnie means well at the very least, and his story actually reaches a conclusion.
This is insane because Ronnie the security guard has more character development than characters with more scenes than him that are involved with the story.
Like, Charlie and Sarah. These 2 characters in question are a paradox.
Halloween H2O is supposed to be a post-Scream slasher movie where characters can be more than just simple stereotypes.
Charlie and Sarah have something going on between them. That thing being their genitals, apparently, because they're obsessed with sex and never stop talking about it.
I could have a roaming orgy.
I love the way this man thinks.
Hope that's not the only thing she loves about me.
That's all their characters are. They talk about sex, and that's as far as it goes.
Romantic dinner, candlelight, soft music,
Animal sex.
get a hormone suppressant. You're embarrassing the newlyweds, Charles.
They don't actually have sex, though. They're not promiscuous at all. They might not even know what sex is.
It honestly sounds like middle school kids talking about sex and saying, tee-hee.
I don't know. These characters are really one-dimensional, and they feel like they're too obviously there just to pad out the body count.
Oh yeah, Halloween H2O is a horror movie. So I guess I should talk about the kills.
Well, H2O isn't about murders. It's about the characters and exploring them and deconstructing and, whatever.
Not many characters die in Halloween H2O, so I can't really reveal any deaths without dealing out some major spoilers.
I will say that the kills are mostly kept conservative. The death scenes aren't gory. Michael doesn't punch a guy's head off or crucify somebody looking for a corkscrew. The suspense is more important to a character's death in this movie than the death itself.
There is one exception where a character got a particularly gruesome death for no apparent reason. It seemed kinda random, but it was a surprise.
If you've ever wanted to see a 17-year-old girl get turned into furniture, this movie's got you covered. You fucking weirdo. It really is nice that the suspense is king in Halloween H2O, but there is one pet peeve I have regarding the movie's approach to horror.
Oh. Hey, Miss Whittington, what's going on?
This movie loves jump scares, or at least attempted jump scares.
Characters are constantly bumping into each other or surprising each other with some scary music attached. This will happen even during broad daylight.
Oh, damn it! Oh, Miss Tate, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make you jump. It's okay.
It's kind of dumb. The reason why it happens is probably because there's such a long period where Michael is just traveling. They need to fill the gap with something, scary, I guess. The jump scares pretty much stop when Michael arrives. I don't know, maybe it's all just a joke. Now here's a serious nitpick, but one worth mentioning all the same. Even some of the worst Halloween sequels can give you a nice vibe to help you get into the Halloween season. The feeling that fall has arrived, seeing people in costumes, jack-o'-lanterns, just a great atmosphere. Halloween H2O just doesn't have that Halloween feel, unfortunately. It takes place at a private school that doesn't celebrate Halloween openly.
H2O has to squeeze as much of the holiday in wherever it possibly can.
The movie opens with a great shot of kids making jack-o'-lanterns, and there's a town scene later that shows trick-or-treaters, but that's where the Halloween stuff ends in Halloween H2O. The movie takes place on Halloween out of tradition.
I mean, it kinda has to. It's called Halloween after all.
The director, Steve Miner, did a good job making this movie look good and all, but he just couldn't get enough Halloween out of the look. It all seems like an afterthought.
As the title suggests, Halloween H2O is the anniversary sequel, a celebration of a quite influential horror series. Unfortunately, it came a little too late.
The only returning cast member besides Curtis is Nancy Stevens, reprising her memorable role as Marion Chambers, the nurse that hung out with Dr. Loomis for some reason.
Hasn't anyone told you? Secondhand smoke kills.
Yeah, but they're all dead.
There are no other cameos from anybody that was involved in the series.
There is a cameo by Jamie Lee Curtis's mom, the late great Janet Leigh.
It's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare.
But it seems like she's only in the movie, so there could be a not-so-subtle Psycho reference.
Okay, I get it. She was in Psycho.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt is also in Halloween H2O. He wasn't in any of the other Halloween movies.
I just felt that this was my only opportunity to mention that Joseph Gordon-Levitt was in this movie.
Levitt has a hockey stick. He sure does, Dr. Wolfula. He sure does.
Jimmy been suspended 5 times this year already for getting a little crazy with the stick, alright?
Jimmy, down! Dr. Loomis couldn't appear in this movie because Donald Pleasance unfortunately passed away a few years earlier. The only bit of Dr. Loomis you can get in H2O is a voiceover of his famous speech from the original, but said by voice actor Tom Kane instead.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes. The devil's eyes.
Tom Kane's impression only vaguely sounds like Donald Pleasance to me. Well, he played Loomis again in a Boondocks episode, so what do I know?
Oh, the spawn of Satan! I must destroy you!
Somebody call my grandmother!
Dr. Loomis's absence brings to light a harsh reality. Michael Myers just doesn't work without Dr. Loomis or a character like Dr. Loomis.
You need an adversary for Michael, a character that knows Michael better than anybody else, that can give insight and context to Myers' actions. Laurie can't fill that crucial role because she only knew Michael through a few brief encounters.
That's not enough time to form a meaningful connection with somebody.
Without that understanding character, Michael is just one of the many mute masked men with knives after a new group of teens.
Michael's enemy is what set him apart from all of his imitators.
I can't hold it against H2O for not having Loomis. I mean, the actor died, but it's clear that the movie struggles to find enough things to fill the void.
Just imagine this movie with Donald Pleasance, though. Oh, man. It could have been perfect.
It was pure evil.
It's that time again for Dr. Wolfula's Trivia Corner.
Where's that voice coming from?
Did you know that 4 different Michael Myers masks were used in H2O?
Yeah.
Why, you ask? Well, the main mask they used was terrible, and nobody could agree on how he should look, so fuck it. A lot of scenes had to be reshot because of this, and the scenes that couldn't be reshot, Michael's mask is replaced with really bad CGI. Again, fuck it. Besides reshoots, Halloween H2O also went through a ton of rewrites. Michael wasn't always going to be the killer. No, who was going to be the actual killer? Charlie Devereaux. Yeah, the kid from Jumanji was apparently going to be the actual killer. There was even going to be a charming scene where Charlie sings the Oscar Mayer Wiener song, with Myers spelled like Myers to hint that Charlie would be the real killer. Get it?
Ugh, that's terrible.
You just don't have a sense of humor, Ghoulash. Michael eventually would show up and kill Charlie. Sadly, this didn't end up happening, because it turns out that Dimension already made the Scream movies. Ah, shucks.
Well, speaking of Scream, I'm gonna posit a little theory I have for why so many things are left hanging in this movie.
Kevin Williamson, the writer of the Scream series, was involved in the writing process of Halloween H2O. Now, Scream was a big hit, bringing slasher films back in vogue as a hip thing in the eyes of trendy young adults, and Dimension Films was obviously hoping that Williamson could give them another big hit with an already established franchise. The Scream influence in H2O is quite clear. Scream 2 even plays on TV in a scene, even though it fucks up with the Halloween continuity. Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't gonna come back just to honor the movie that started her career. No, she was also in it to expand her audience, but where does that leave Josh Hartnett? Why introduce John and Molly and not do all that much with them? Well, because they were probably going to make sequels. Of course they were. H2O pretty much brings Michael and Laurie's story to a close, but that doesn't mean that's the end of the Halloween series. Dimension would likely take the series in a different direction with the young characters established in H2O at the helm.
That didn't happen, though.
Halloween H2O made its money back and then some, but it received mixed reviews, so it wasn't exactly the critical darling that Dimension was hoping for. Halloween H2O was instead followed up by Resurrection, which pissed all over everything that H2O had set up. But hey, at least Halloween didn't become a total clone of the Scream series.
Yeah, it became a clone of the Scream series and the Blair Witch instead.
In the music department, Halloween H2O fares alright. None of the new stuff is particularly memorable. It's usually generic ambient horror music and stringy chase arrangements, but there is a really great rendition of the Halloween theme during the opening credits. The music all in all sounds fine, it's just not gonna stick with you. The song Mr. Sandman also makes a return from Halloween 2 during the opening shot, which always brings chills to my spine.
Oh man, so great. Luckily, H2O isn't filled to the brim with licensed music that could end up dating it.
Except for that fucking Creed song during the credits, Ghoulash. Dear God, what were they thinking with that? What does being in the desert have to do with Halloween?
Here's where I spoil the ending of the movie. You know the drill. Skip to this time code if you want to avoid having the conclusion revealed.
Laurie Strode finally faces her brother Michael in a cathartic battle of good versus evil. There will be no running away this time. Well, maybe some running away. Laurie must get revenge for Michael killing her boyfriend Will and Ronnie the security guard.
Well, technically, Will killed Ronnie, but whatever, that doesn't matter.
Laurie's not letting anybody else die is the point. Especially her son. There's actually a really good reference to the original movie when Laurie tells John and Molly to go to a house down the street.
I want you to drive down the street to the Beckers, the mile down the road. Tell them to call an ambulance and get the police.
No, we're not leaving
Go,
yet.
as I say now!
Cool. Alright, back to the fight. Knives are thrown, tables are flipped, fire extinguishers are used inappropriately, state flags are disrespected. It's all quite exciting, but Michael eventually loses.
Good will always triumph, because evil is dumb.
Before the final blow is struck, Michael tears open a portal in time and flings Laurie into the future, where his evil is law. No, I'm just kidding. Ronnie really picks the worst time to not be dead anymore, and prevents Laurie from finishing the job.
Well, Michael's dead anyway, right? And hey, he only killed like 3 people at the school. So it's a big win for good.
Most importantly, Ronnie will get to flourish as a writer of erotic fiction.
Hey, baby, I'm gonna write a romantic thriller.
What?
Yeah, a thriller. I love you too.
I think he actually goes on to write a sexy version of what happened in this movie. I can't wait to read it. And see the movie. Well, Laurie's lust for blood is still not satisfied. You can't please everyone. So she swipes a cop's gun and hijacks the coroner's van with Michael on board. She just wanted an excuse to take a joyride. Well, Laurie's hunch was correct. Michael's not dead. Shocker. One thing leads to another, and Michael becomes pinned between a tree and the van. Laurie is prepared to kill Michael, but she can't because he's still her brother and she's still his sister. They can resolve this, whatever, screw it. She didn't know him that well, and he was kind of a dick. Let's all just pretend that this is actually the end of the Halloween series, and that she actually did chop off Michael's head, instead of some random paramedic, please. It's not a very poetic end, but it's better than anything that came after. I guarantee it.
I know that it sounds like I've been overly negative, but Halloween H2O is still a fine sequel.
It can be pretty entertaining. Jamie Lee Curtis is great in it, and there are some chilling moments.
It just falls short of what it could have been.
There's a lull in the middle. Michael isn't anywhere near as imposing as in previous films. It's a bit derivative of Scream, and a lot of the characters just aren't very developed.
H2O is a mixed bag for most hardcore fans, but it's definitely worth a watch.
It's a good entry point in the series because of those Scream elements that it cribs. H2O is still the most modern and mainstream of the Halloween films, and it'll probably age better than a lot of the other movies just based on looks alone. There are no dated hairstyles or fashion, they don't show old phones or other tech, and it's not in some kind of imitation grindhouse style. Halloween H2O is a movie that looks like it could have come out recently, even though it came out 17 years ago, so it's got that going for it.
Anyway, what do you rate Halloween H2O, Dr. Wolfula?
I give it a horror movie star vehicle out of H2O, just add water.
So, Ghoulash, how come you don't look very tortured after your torture retreat that cost me 50 grand? Well, a lot of the injuries were internal. You know, advanced laser technology, parasites, you know, that sort of thing. Okie dokie, checks out with me. Back to Scooby-Doo. Wow. I got out of that easy. A little too easy. No, it's easy enough.
Michael Myers. Yeah, right.
Wow, Dr. Wolfula is really stupid.